Okay, today I'm going to separate my worms from my compost, and I thought I'd show you my setup. It's well, let's just be honest, it's poor man's setup. This is all recycled materials. My bins were actually recycled bins from a move we made a few years ago. This one, I've got my shaker, which I built out of just scrap pieces of hardware cloth and some 1-bys and 2-bys. The can under it just kind of gives me a rocking motion, and this is an old drawer. That's what I catch my compost in. It's just an old drawer that I had out of a cabinet that fell apart. So yeah, it's cheap. You can do it 100 different ways, and granted, the way I'm going to do this today is probably not the best, but it works for me, and I'm a very small scale composter, so for me it works the best. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set this up, and then I will jump back in here in just a minute. Okay, so now I've got my shaker set up, and I've already poured up some of the worms and compost out of my bin, and basically it's about as simple as it gets. I just start working it down and shake it down to separate it. As you get in here with your hands and work it. Basically, I'm just trying to work this stuff down, separate out the good compost. And once I get that done, then I can take all the uncomposted off the top, and it'll go back in here to be mixed into the new compost bed. Okay, I shook down my first run, and you can see got nice rich worm poo, if you will, and then I can gather up my worms, put them back in the box here for the next round. And pretty much the shaker I've got is not small enough to keep the worms out, but it lets me separate out all the uncomposted material, and then having this little box here just lets me gather up my worms and put them back where they belong. Now, this is not the most time efficient way to do it, but again, I'm a small scale composter. I don't do a lot of this, at least not right now, and so for me this works. But now this gives me the opportunity to go through this. I can look for cocoons, make sure I haven't missed any worms, and all of this will go into my compost bucket, where I'll carry it out, and then I'll mix it in with soil, and I'll make potting soil out of it for my wife. Okay, I have now gone through my bin, and I have separated all of the worms out, all of the uncomposted out, and what I'm left with are the castings. Very nice, rich. Actually, this one has a little bit of odor to it, which tells me I didn't have probably enough air in my compost. I got a little anaerobic, so I'm going to add a few more vent holes, and then I'll be able to do a better job with the keeping the air moving. But this is what I got, and this will go into a bucket, and I'm going to let it dry out a little bit, and I want to mix it in with either peat moss or good topsoil to enrich it, and then I'll put that up and store it, and that'll be used for potting plants around our house. So anyway, that's the first part. Now I've got another part I want to do next on preparing a new bed. Okay, so now I'm going to prepare my bin. If you can see, this is just an 18-gallon tote. I've got holes drilled around the sides and across the bottom to allow for air. I added a few holes to it because my last one I felt was a little anaerobic, and I want to get more air moving into it. So what I'm using for a bed is my base is pretty much just old grocery bags. You'll see here, notice it's renewable, compostable, and biodegradable. I love them. They're great. Or recyclable. I said biodegradable, recyclable. But what you do is you tear it up into pieces, and some folks like to shred theirs fine. I feel like that as long as you tear it up into pieces so that it doesn't clump together and mat where the worms would suffocate, it'll be fine. You wet it, and Once you've wet it down, then you drain the water off of it, and you just kind of wring it out so that there's not any standing water in it. Then you separate it. And then to this, I'll add leaves, and then I'll add the rest of my uncomposted compost and my worms. One thing I did want to show as well is the setup on my boxes. I'm using 18-gallon Rubbermaid totes, and this is my bottom tote. I have air holes drilled around it, and then I have blocks in the bottom of it, and that's to hold the second tote up off the bottom to allow it for proper drainage. And I'll put the second tote in, insert into this, and then I have a lid that goes on top that really is just a furnace filter, but it blocks out the light. It allows plenty of air circulation. It also keeps the worms in case they want to try to escape. Okay, so now I've gone and I've mixed in some old leaves, a little bit of grass. Don't want to use a lot of green grass. Green grass clumps together, it gets really hot, and becomes anaerobic really fast. So I put just a little bit in here, but I've mixed the leaves in with my Dorsey bags. Now I'm going to add the leftover compost that hadn't finished yet. It's in here, plus all my worms. There it goes. Alright. Now, okay, now if you can see this now, see my worms. I've got all my uncomposted material in there. And so now I'll wet this down. Make sure it's nice and moist. You want it moist enough where you can squeeze it like a sponge, and you might get one drop of water. You don't want it saturated, but you want to keep it wet. These worms love dampness. So I'll keep this wet, and this one's ready to start putting food into. So next time we'll look at some more of this. Thank you very much.